Hello, everybody. I am so excited to have Erin Kerry here of Sparking Wholeness. Erin is a certified integrated nutrition health coach and self-proclaimed brain health nerd. She has received training from the Institute from Integrative Nutrition and the School of Applied Functional Medicine. She is the owner of Sparking Wholeness and works as an integrative health coach at Living Well Holistic Counseling and Wellness in Tyler, Texas. As a survivor of mental illness, Erin knows firsthand how suffering from a chronic illness can infiltrate every area of our life. She has spent the last decade learning what holistic health truly means, and that comes from in the form of nutrition for mind, body, and soul. Erin wants people to be empowered to be their own health advocate and not be limited by a label or a diagnosis. Erin, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
I love your story. And the more I get to know you, the more I'm just like, we have to have you on again because there's so many, from my personal story that I relate so much to what you have walked through and just kind of how our journeys have collided. But just the way that you're able to bring language to really complex, interconnected issues. And so I'm so thankful that you're here today to talk to us about really improving our mental health from that holistic mind, body, spirit perspective. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, that's fun. I love talking about all of these.
Right.
So look forward to it.
Absolutely. So let's start at the very kind of foundation of how would you define, because I feel like there's still so much stigma attached to even the topic of mental health or mental illness. So how would you kind of define that for the audience that's listening?
Yeah, that's a really good question because I do believe while not everyone will be diagnosed with a mental illness, I think everybody is going to suffer from mental health issues at some point
Right.
in their lifetime. And that could be related to trauma, grief, job changes, moves, loss, I guess grief
Absolutely.
is loss, but any of those real life things that we encounter. But then we also have a percentage of the people, and that percentage is growing, that are diagnosed with mental illnesses that it's really contributing to the overall physical health, and it's debilitating, and it is rooted in some internal, maybe some external imbalances, but there are definitely a lot of internal imbalances at play as well. And so it can be either or, but it also can be both and so we can have situational
Yes.
periods where we struggle with our mental health, or we can have ongoing periods where we struggle because our body is trying to alert us to an internal issue that's going on. And I do like to think of even just mental illness as we diagnose it, it's truly our body trying to alert us to something that's wrong.
Yes.
And we have the choice to find what that imbalance is. Of course, from a functional medicine lens, it's like, what is the root of that? And
Right.
how can we correct what is driving that? And then some people will maybe need some symptom relief in the meanwhile. And we can get into a little bit more of what that would look like. But yeah, I mean, it's such a, these days, so many people are suffering and so many people are struggling. And it is unfortunately very normal to be struggling.
Yes.
And it's okay if you're listening to this and you're struggling and you're like, oh, I just want to make it stop. And I don't
Yes.
feel normal and I don't feel like myself. That's extremely isolating. So just know
100%.
you are not alone. We all go through it in some form or fashion. So yeah,
Absolutely.
that answers your question.
It does, absolutely. And I think, there was something a friend told me in nursing school that it might have been like my psych nursing rotation, I can't remember. But that it's everyone is susceptible. None
Mhm.
of us are, I mean, yes, there may be some genetic factors that create more of a susceptibility for some and not others. We know that there are socioeconomic factors
Mhm.
that predispose. There are nutritive factors. There are multiple, none of us exist in a vacuum, right? And so, but I think normalizing mental health, taking care of our mental health from that physical, emotional, spiritual perspective, um, it can change everything. Because if we do feel that stigma or that, oh, this is only for people who are super broken or have a really
Right.
traumatic past, then we're going to most likely miss some of those warning signs that we're actually not doing okay. Prolong getting essential treatment, right? And then it takes longer to recover. And so I think if we can, like you said, like everybody is susceptible. We will experience mental health changes. We know that in menopause, women experience, just like puberty, mental health changes. And it's really important to talk about that because it's not 100% hormonal, although that's a piece of it. And so really understanding that there are a lot of different facets to what mental health even is or what mental illness is, and even some of the evidence that's coming out now, how much of that is actually inflammatory,
Absolutely.
is changing our paradigm of how we think about mental health issues, right? So,
Yeah.
can you tell us, and I know this is a big topic, how does nutrition impact our mental and emotional health? Because for me, I know that that was not a part of my treatment plan until I crashed, and I crashed hard,
Right.
postpartum. And I did not find that in the conventional medical community. And so let's talk about how does nutrition play a role in that? And what are maybe some foundations within that that we can start being proactive about?
Yeah, I mean, there are two ways, kind of two approaches that I would look at it, and they're very much connected. But we have the nutrient factor, and then we have the gut health factor, our gut microbiome. And so I'm going to start with the nutrient factor because
Yes.
they're absolutely connected. Anything that we absorb, ingest, eat, consume, whatever, it's going to impact the health of our gut.
Yes.
And so, depending on how healthy our gut is, makes a difference in what's even getting absorbed. But let's just talk about the nutrients first. So from the nutrient perspective, we have to be able to have a certain amount of B vitamins, amino acids. There are certain minerals at play as well to create neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are the chemical messengers in our body that function at the brain level, and they're being sent throughout our body because of the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is the nerve that connects the brain all the way to the gut, and it attaches to different organs in between, right? And so it's more of a web than a highway. A lot of people talk about the gut brain highway, but it really
Yes.
is more like the gut brain web. It's
Web.
all
Yeah.
connected. But there are certain key nutrients that we must have to make something like serotonin. I think I use serotonin as an example a lot because serotonin is what people would consider to be the happy neurotransmitter, right?
Right.
People are familiar with serotonin because antidepressants are the most commonly used antidepressants are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. That means you are keeping serotonin in your brain a little bit longer so that you can be happier and less anxious and feel safer longer. And
Right.
serotonin does so much more than regulate our happiness. It also plays a big role in regulating our bowel motility because, again, our brain is connected to our
Gut.
gut. So
Yep.
there's a lot serotonin does beyond just brain health, but that's what we normally think of. Well,
Totally.
just to make serotonin in the body, we have to have certain B vitamins. We have to have tryptophan. Tryptophan is going to be converted to 5-HTP. 5-HTP is converted to serotonin. And another thing that's really important with serotonin is at nighttime, serotonin gets converted to melatonin. And we really need that for good sleep. So if you
Yes.
are having a really hard time going to sleep at night, if you rely on melatonin, it might not be the melatonin that you need. It might be the serotonin that you need. So but if we just take that going back through those layers, we have to have those raw materials to make the serotonin. And so many people are not getting that
Right.
specifically. And we've talked about this before. B6 is necessary
Yep.
to make serotonin. B6 is something that's depleted with birth control pills. And a lot of these B vitamins, unfortunately, is something that can be depleted with medications.
Yep.
Even mood medications can deplete B vitamins. But we need the B vitamins to
To
make the
make right.
neurotransmitters. So it's a web, and it's a tangled web, right? Especially once we start trying all these wonderful things. And let me add in there, I was on antidepressants for 18 years.
Yep.
I was medicated very young in my life. I was on all sorts of other mood stabilizers, probably for about 10 years total time in between there. But antidepressants I was on for a very long time. And what we are seeing now with antidepressants is it does create disruption in gut bacteria. There's an interesting study that talks about how they cause microbial imbalances specifically a disruption of lactobacillus, and that regulates body weight. So we've got
Right.
all these people on antidepressants, and they're like, well, gosh, I mean, maybe I feel a little bit better, but I keep gaining weight. I don't know why. It could be the lactobacillus. Well, but
Totally.
wait, we need lactobacillus to produce neurotransmitters. So that's where the gut health comes into play. We have certain strains of bacteria that help produce neurotransmitters as well. So lactobacillus helps to produce acetylcholine, which regulates the vagus nerve, and GABA. So I threw a whole lot of stuff out there. But what I want to get to, I'm going to kind of peel it
You're
away
doing
and
great.
back it up again, because it's a lot. And I mean,
Totally.
it's taken me years to get to understanding this and to see how does this actually affect me and the people that I'm working with and the people that I talk to, and how does this impact my family? If you are eating your food in a stressed out state, if you're constantly stressed, you're always on the go, and you're eating in a hurry, you're eating standing up. And, I'll be honest, I ate in a bit of a hurry earlier just because I've got things I have to do. Well, that's going to inhibit what your body's going to be able to absorb and digest. I always say a body in stress won't digest.
Right.
So, that plays a role. The way that you eat plays a role in what's even digested. If you are eating overly processed foods, we know we've got lots of studies now that shows that eating overly processed foods is directly connected to anxiety and depression. But if you're eating those overly processed foods, it also impacts digestion. You're just not getting the nutrients that you need. So
Right.
we have a lot of things that work against us in our modern culture as to what we're actually digesting, consuming. Then you factor in things like that, and glyphosate on everything that
Right.
breaks down the gut microbiome, and so we're not getting the raw materials. And so I don't say this to stress anybody out
Right.
or to like freak out and panic, because there are things that we can do. We can make sure that we are eating whole foods as much as possible in a relaxed state, and as much as possible is going to look different from one person to another. As much as possible is going to look different from one stage of life to another.
Right.
It's going to look different for our kids depending on the stage that they're at. Like I have 3 kids, one's 18, one's 9, and one is 6. The 9 and 6-year-old are both playing the same sport in the same season, and it's a little hectic. We
Right.
are relying a little bit more on pizza than I would like to.
Right.
but that's reality, and that's where we
Yeah.
are, and I try to make up for the gaps in other ways. And so
Totally.
just realistically, where can you add in more nutrition? Where can you be kind? And I think of it even as like, this is not like we're going on a diet and I'm going to make you add in all these things.
Right.
This is, where can I give my body a break? Where can I take a
Yes.
second and add in some food? It happened to me today. I was in a hurry, but you know what I rely on when I'm in a hurry and I'm at my house and it's a work at home day? I rely on eggs. I scramble up some eggs. Eggs are loaded in so many brain nutrients, especially the yolks. They are packed with choline, which regulates the vagus nerve, that gut brain communication. They're
Right.
packed with B vitamins. There's so many good things about eggs. And so I always know I can scramble up some eggs pretty fast in the same amount of time that I would just like have handfuls of popcorn or something, right?
Right.
And then I'm
Absolutely.
getting that protein that we talked about. I'm getting the amino acids from protein that we have to have for neurotransmitters, along with those other vitamins and minerals. So I say all of that not to be overwhelming, but just to look at it from a perspective of, what am I giving my body so that it feels safe
Yes.
to digest, absorb, and utilize the food or that I'm providing it, and then what's it going to do from there? The rest of it is up to my body, but I can control the stress levels while I'm eating, and I
Right.
can control what I put into my mouth for the most part.
Right. Yes. No, and I think, with all of that information, it would be very easy to become overwhelmed, but if we look at it as most of us, if not all of us, have to relearn how to eat in a way
Yeah.
that is actually giving our body a break. And I remember I used to think of like, I would change my diet or I would do keto or I would do intermittent fasting without really a thought as far as how those nutrients and that style of eating would impact the different organs of my body long term. It really wasn't until I kind of crashed and burned on both of them that I
Mhm.
felt really awful after a period of time, that I started to realize I really have to shift my mindset about why I'm eating the way that I'm eating. And I loved what you said is where can I give my body a break? Because if we're looking at the food we're putting in our mouth, the intention that it takes to, let's say, go to the grocery store and look through the ingredients, if my mindset is this is such a hassle, this is so frustrating, this is such like a cost to our family, versus I get the opportunity to nourish myself. And this is an investment where I actually get to nourish my family. If I'm looking at it that way, the feelings that I have even about eating that food and being inconvenienced by it is going to impact my stress level, right? And my digestion. So it's even
Absolutely.
those things, right?